fans, I am super excited. We've been doing this now for 2 weeks. We're going live for the first time. MikeTooNice has a great YouTube channel over there. We're going to obviously recap week 3. We're going to jump into the future of the New York Giants. We'll talk about the rest of the season, talk about this week's matchup. But, Mike, thank you so much for coming on, man. And I'm excited to start this live with you, my man.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to talk to the chat for the first time. I don't think I've done a live. I mean, I did it on the other channel, but first time on my channel, I've done a live. I mean, it's technically your channel, but you know what I mean. So it's pretty exciting to interact with the fans here, and we'll have some fun.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And yeah, just in case you guys don't know, if one of my mods could put Mike's channel in the chat, I'd appreciate it. We're gonna do this every other week. So we'll be on his channel next week. We'll be doing this with you guys each and every week. Always have a lot of fun talking to Mike. He's a great YouTuber. Love the film breakdown. You told me that you were working on that before we went live, so I'll definitely be sure to check that out. But we got a lot to talk about, Mike. Where do you want to start?
Oh man, I don't know where to start. Honestly, there's so much. There's GM talk. There's how pathetic they looked last week talk. There's who to draft next year talk. I mean, I don't know. I'll let you lead this thing, and we'll go wherever you want to go.
Let's start with the game. And there's, I mean, we talked about the game on your channel last week, and going into the game, we agreed on pretty much everything what needed to happen for us to win. But the one thing we both harped on was third down conversion rate on offense and getting off the field on third down, and it was awful. It was beyond bad the entire game, and it was on both sides of the ball. The defense was very underwhelming. They were coming off 2 performances where we thought they might have been, not that we thought they were a finished product, but we thought that they were showing signs of life and signs of improvement, and that kind of all went up in smoke this week. And obviously Jones had that really crucial turnover. The Darnay Holmes penalty was really bad. That kind of is where you started to see it really go under. The Evan Ingram fumble on the end around, which people I think credited Jones. I personally think that was Warren Ingram. But there was a number of boneheaded plays throughout this game, and I honestly don't know what to take from the game positive. I think it's one of those games where you got to rip it up and hope the team comes out with a good effort next week.
Yeah, I'll try to find something positive the more I think about it, but you're right. They just flat out beat themselves. I mean, the Giants are a team. I think we knew it coming into the year where they cannot afford to beat themselves, but we're talking about, you just listed 4 plays where there were very crucial plays where they basically beat themselves. The Darnay Holmes play, I'll chalk it up to him being a rookie, but just awful. I mean, 3rd and 22, and you're just, basically holding a guy 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage. That made no sense. The Ingram play, definitely on him. You could say maybe it was a bit behind him, maybe a bit high. You have to catch that in the NFL. I don't care what you say, but missed tackles as well. I did that in the film review. Fackrell had a terrible one on 2nd and 13 that went for a first down. The game was over at this point, but Logan Ryan and Julian Love had a missed tackle as well in there at the end on Jeff Wilson. Just terrible. I mean, there looked like the effort wasn't there in the second half on defense. And you were right. I was pretty optimistic about this defense. It seemed like maybe they were an Xavier McKinney away and maybe a legit pass rusher away from being good. But now it's just I don't know. We're kind of back to square one here, so I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah, and for me, that was the most discouraging thing. Rolly, I'll get to that in 1 second, man. Thank you very much. That to me was the most discouraging thing was that it was the effort. The week before, the effort was 1,000%. They came out there. They had every reason to quit. We talked about how optimistic we were about the effort that they came out in the second half. This week, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just really poor tackling, but it just looked effortless as that game wore down. It was really discouraging the entire game.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what to think. It's not good.
Yeah, it's not good at all. And Rolly, man, thank you very much. He says, "What up, fellas? Finally, Mike is doing a live stream." Mike, hey. I know you were getting sick and tired of me asking you when you're doing a stream. Now you finally did. So there's Rolly. He's giving me a quick shout out there. Mike's the man, dude. He's the man. I've always loved his content. One thing that we've kind of disagreed with on, and I'm going to admit right now that you're right. I mean, and I'm going to continue to say the things I've said about Gettleman. I think he inherited a really, really bad situation. I think ownership set him up for failure, much like I think they set Daniel Jones up for failure. But at the end of the day, Gettleman's missed on a lot of his picks. I can't defend him with that. He's missed on some of his trades. Do I like some of the things he did? Yeah. Do I think he had a good offseason this year? Yeah. Do I think Joe Judge could be credited with some of it? Yeah. But overall, I do think that the New York Giants are going to move on. And at this point, even though I'm a guy that wants sustainability, I don't like a lot of change. I'm a New York Knicks fan. We were talking before we went live. I've seen how much the Knicks have flipped 13 coaches in the last 20 years or so. They've flipped 7 GMs, and it doesn't work. So I'm a guy that wants sustainability. I'm a guy that wants to get it right. If they move on from Gettleman, it'll be 3 GMs in 4 years. We're at 4 head coaches now in 5 or 6 years. Yeah. It's not a good pattern, Mike. And I know you agree with that. But you know what? At the end of the day, He's not getting the job done, and I understand the frustration, and I can't defend the guy anymore. I just can't.
Yeah, it'd be hard to, I guess, at this point. It feels like Derek Fisher was the coach, like, 2 years ago. It just seems like, with the Knicks, I don't know, they've had so many coaches since. But, for the Giants and Gettleman, I mean, I do like sustainability. And I think we both agree that Joe Judge has to be here for 4 or 5 years. You can't do this head coach thing anymore. Tom Coughlin was 2015. So they've had 4 head coaches since then, which is ridiculous. So you can't have that. And look, I wanted Gettleman to work, but I just knew based on his history in Carolina, his philosophy as his GM, I just never liked the guy. Never liked, not him the person. I like him as a person. I don't want to get that wrong, but like the way he does things as GM, I did not like. I mean, of course, the Barkley pick, my dumbass wanted Rosen. We get it, but you probably should have traded back that draft. You know what I mean? Like trading back would have been the right thing to do. And the Colts did it. They got 4 picks in the top 50. I don't think any of those picks amounted to anything great. It might have been a Darius Leonard pick, honestly. So that would have been great. But still, to trade back and get more picks was the right thing to do there. And I love Saquon Barkley. I've admitted from day one, probably the best player in that draft. But the position he plays is unfortunately a replaceable position. And when you can't block for the guy, it's useless. We saw him in the first 5 quarters when the Giants had him. No running lanes whatsoever. He had one nice run in there, one nice screen pass. But outside of that, they couldn't use Barkley's talent because they couldn't block for the guy. So I felt bad for him.
Yeah, that's the problem for me. And we didn't. I love Saquon Barkley. I bought his jersey the second we drafted him. The guy's an immense talent. The guy's a phenomenal player. We didn't have the team set up to support a guy that plays a position that has a very short shelf life. And that, to me, is where you can knock the pick. Now, to people, I always say, though, for people that say we should have taken Quentin Nelson there, I personally, and Quentin Nelson obviously would have been better for the long-term solution of the New York Giants. Yeah. But I think those same fans that are flipping out about that pick would have flipped out about taking a guard number 2 overall. I just do. If you're being completely honest with yourself, I honestly do believe that. Now, I will agree with you that the New York Giants should have traded back if there was a trade there. We'll never know if it was there. My guess is it probably was. And if it was there, yeah, the New York Giants should have traded back. It has nothing to do with the injury of Barkley. You can't predict injuries, but the Giants didn't have the team set up for Saquon Barkley. And you could honestly make the same statement with Daniel Jones. And you and me are both on the Daniel Jones train. We still want to see a full year, second year of this guy before we're ready to evaluate him for sure. Mm-hmm. But the Giants never had the team in place to support a quarterback. I said the same thing about Eli Manning for 8 years. And I'm, not that Eli Manning didn't get older as he got, as he went along. We didn't have the team situated to support a quarterback. And it to me, it all goes back to ownership. That's where the main problem stems from. We got Gettleman in here. He's probably one of the only GMs that was willing to take the job, knowing that a 37-year-old quarterback was going to be thrust upon him. So to me, the main problem has always been that we have not had a complete offense. And I think we set Jones up for failure. I think we set Barkley up for failure. And that's where it all stems from.
Mm-hmm, definitely. I've always said I think what John Mara wanted to do was hire the most qualified GM back when he did the GM search back in 2017, hire the most qualified GM that was willing to ride with Eli Manning for at least a couple more years. And I think Gettleman was that guy. And I'm sure Gettleman wanted to be the GM when Jerry Reese was promoted. He probably was a little salty about that one. So he came back years later and said, all right, I can finally do my thing with Eli Manning here. But by that point, Eli Manning was kind of washed, and we knew that back in 2017 or so. You could see Eli Manning starting to decline for sure. So that definitely has to be included in there. But just the whole situation, even we're talking about early running backs, like the Dallas Cowboys taking Zeke, it made sense at the time because Tony Romo was coming off an injury. They still had Romo. They got Prescott in the 4th round, which they lucked out in. But they had the offensive line in place. They had, I'm pretty sure, Des Bryant at the time. They had some good outside weapons. Jason Witten was still there. They had a good offense. What did the Giants have when they took Barkley? Patrick Omameh, Nate Solder was their best offensive lineman, which tells you all you need to know right there. John Halapio. I mean, there was just nothing, Yeah, it just made no sense to me. And I even said back in 2018 when I first started doing commentaries that taking a guard number 2 is a bit too high for me. But seeing how good Nelson's turned out probably would have been the right move, in my opinion. But I don't want to be a hypocrite about it.
No, I agree with that. I agree that now, like you want to play Monday morning quarterback 3 years later. Yeah, sure, we should have taken Nelson. But if you're being honest with yourself on draft night, most people, I don't remember a guard ever going number 2 overall ever. And people complained about the running back going too early. They would have said the same thing about the guard. Now, if you want to say that we should have traded down and got Nelson, I'm completely understanding of that. And he's obviously lived up to the hype going into the draft. The other thing that makes the Barkley pick look even worse, and Bobby, I'm going to get to that 1 second, is the fact that so far Hernandez has been a letdown. If Hernandez was a great guard, nobody's talking about Nelson. He's been a letdown in the second round, a guy that we all had super high expectations for.
Definitely. Yeah, I remember tweeting out, like, I literally tweeted, if Gettleman's serious about this Hog Molly stuff, you'll take Will Hernandez. So I'm as guilty as anyone. I loved him. I thought it was a great pick. Right now, he's looking average at best. There's a lot of times he's not looking good. And I guess there's still time to improve, but it's running out. Like Shane Lemieux is waiting right behind him. We now have the luxury of having depth on this team. So, I'm sure the Giants won't be afraid to take him out. And, Zeitler's been all right, of course. He's fine. They're not going to take him out. So it might be Hernandez, the next guy in line, but he has to be better. I always thought he would be better. And as you said, we would definitely forget about a guy like Nelson if Hernandez was playing well, but he's just not at this point. We have to recognize that.
Yeah, for sure. Bobby, man, thank you very much, man. If you haven't done so, go check him out. He says, Tana, is Barkley injury prone or is it bad luck? That's a great question. That is a great question. Now he's had 2 injuries. One was a high ankle sprain. I don't know if you can consider him injury prone with that. The other's an ACL tear. It is 2 injuries in 2 years. I can't say he's not trending that way, that's for sure. But we've seen running backs sustain that injury before and come back. Adrian Peterson being one of them. And all we can hope as Giants fans is that's what happens here.
Yeah, I don't want to – I think trending the right way is the right way to say it. But when the Giants took him at Penn State, the guy I think had a clean history. He might have had a couple of small ankle issues in there, but these are kind of injuries where it's like freak accidents. I don't really think it's, of course, a torn ACL kind of makes you look injury prone, but it's, I don't really want to call him that yet. Hopefully he finds a way to just play 16 games next year. That would be awesome, but I don't want to label him that yet. He's not Darren McFadden out here or anything like that, but it's not trending in the right direction is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I don't think you can come to a conclusive answer with that yet. It's trending in the wrong direction, though. Jason, man, thank you very much. He says, look at how the Colts and the Chargers are built. You build the offensive and defensive lines before drafting a quarterback or a running back. Of course, you did that for Eli in 2004. Jason, I say that all the time. I say that all the time. You look at what Eli stepped into, and I'm not making excuses for Daniel Jones. It's just a matter of how you build the team the proper way. You look at what Eli Manning stepped into, and you look at what Daniel Jones stepped into. Daniel Jones didn't have a fighting chance unless he was going to be a Pat Mahomes-type quarterback, which if you were rational, you never thought that was going to be the case. Look at the offensive line that Daniel Jones had for him compared to Eli Manning. Eli Manning, you're talking about all pros on that offensive line. You're also talking about a Hall of Fame head coach with Tom Coughlin. So I completely agree with that. The New York Giants set Daniel Jones, and we may move on from him, and we'll talk more about that throughout this show. But they set Daniel Jones up for failure. Make no mistake about it.
Yeah, even a present-day example is Joe Burrow. I don't know if you're watching the Bengals, but he's getting hit so much. I think he was sacked 8 times against the Eagles. That's a present-day example. Who was it? David Carr he had his career ruined basically off an offensive line not being good. So when you put these young quarterbacks in situations, and the more I become a football fan, the more I realize situation and team fit for a quarterback in the draft especially is so important. Is Josh Allen going to be who Josh Allen is if he went to the Giants instead of the Bills? I don't think any way in hell. Is Lamar Jackson who Lamar Jackson is if he doesn't go to the Ravens and build an offense around him with a good offensive line, or a great offensive line, I should say? I don't think so. So team fit's very important for these guys, and I think that has to be included now in the future for where these quarterbacks go. But I agree with you. I think Jones, we talked about it in a DM yesterday, was kind of set up to fail. They probably thought they fixed the offensive line. It hasn't happened yet. Sterling Shepard's been out basically half the games Jones has been here, it seems like. Evan Ingram missed a lot of time last year. Saquon Barkley is now going to be gone the whole year. This guy will never get his full range of weapons, and it's not his fault, not to make excuses for the guy, but he'll never have a fair chance. It even looks like this year once again with Barkley out.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to talk about, and I think we talked about this last week, another major problem with the offensive line, and I love that that's the one thing I absolutely love about this offseason, what they did in the draft, because they needed it. They needed a lot of attention on that offensive line. They drafted 3 of them. We haven't seen 2 of them yet, and Thomas is only 3 games into his career. But the major problem with this offensive line over the last 3 years, there's been no continuity. Every year it's a different offensive line. You're asking Will Hernandez to play between 2 players he's never played with. It takes time. I don't care if you got 5 All-Pros. These guys have to play together, and they have to stay together for 3, 4, 5 years before you see significant progress.
Yeah, I'm trying to think right now. Who is anyone on this line back from 2018? Solder's not there. Omame's not there. Halapio's not there.
Reimer's not there.
Reimer's not there.
That's
unbelievable.
Yeah. There's no continuity on the offensive line. That's a major problem. To me, that's a huge problem. And it's, I guess it's not having patience, or I guess it's just bringing in the wrong players. But we've had no familiarity on that offense.
It's probably more of the wrong players. I don't think you.
I think it's definitely a lot of the wrong players. People, that's for damn sure.
Mm-hmm. You can't roll with those people.
Wasn't getting good here no matter what. Well, maybe if we moved him to guard, you saw he did last year with the Skins, but.
Yeah, I don't want to bring it up, but yeah, the Giants were too ignorant to move him to guard. I don't know why they couldn't try it, but he had a crappy attitude. So I'm kind of happy he's gone, but it just proves the point that they probably should have tried him in guard before just flat out releasing him, or just letting him walk, I should say.
Absolutely. Cruz, thank you very much. He says, I actually think Dave Gettleman convinced Mara that Eli still has it. That's how he got the job. Remember that Mara signed off on benching Eli. I mean, it's possible, Cruz. I mean, we'll never know. That's just speculate. Let me get your thoughts on that. And I know you don't.
That is interesting. Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I don't know. I think he might have signed off on it, Mara, at first, but after seeing the amount of backlash that happened to it, Mara probably said, "Oh no, like I can't do this again," and probably felt like he needed to apologize to Eli in a way. And just, I don't know if that was part of the next GM search, but they wanted to build around him. I think it was more of a Mara problem. I would love to sit here and blame Gettleman for it, believe me, but I really think it was more of a Mara problem as to why this team went all in 2018 when they should have been rebuilding, as we all know. But I can't fully blame Gettleman for it. Now, of course, he took the GM job probably knowing he has to roll with Eli Manning, but looking back on it, it was the wrong choice, but it is an interesting thought. I never thought about it that way, but, he did sign off on it. I think for Geno Smith, it was the wrong thing. If it was Davis Webb at the time, who was a young quarterback showing some promise, we could have lived with it, but the fact that it was Geno Smith, I mean, nobody liked it, of course.
Yeah, my theory on, and maybe I'm wrong. Again, it's just speculation. Maybe Cruzon's right. Maybe I'm right. Whatever. My thought process is Dave Gettleman got the job because he was willing to accept Eli Manning. I think a lot of GMs probably weren't going to be willing to take this job if they didn't have say in the quarterback. And there's nothing against Eli Manning. To me, and maybe we think differently on this, I always thought Eli Manning could still be successful if he had a situation like the New Orleans Saints, like what Drew Brees had with the Saints. But Eli Manning never fit the timeline with this football team. They didn't have the pieces around him to allow him to be a game manager, which is what he was at that point in time. It's what Brees has been for 3 years. The Saints have done a great job providing him with a great offensive line. So the Giants should have realized that and moved on and given Eli an opportunity possibly to win somewhere else. That was the biggest problem there. And I think any rational GM would have looked at the situation and said, well, there's no way by the time we get good enough to support Eli, he's going to be 40 years old. That's why I'm not taking this job.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to agree with you about him being able to succeed in a better situation. It would have helped him, but I just think he was done at that point. He showed some flashes, but man, you could tell back in last year, even 2018 especially, I mean, he did not look the same that he used to. I think the pocket presence was gone. He didn't trust his offensive line. He was always looking over his shoulder, wouldn't take chances. That's when I started to get into like the all-22 and look at the film breakdowns and things like that. There were so many instances of guys running open downfield, and Eli wanted to check it down. That's why Saquon Barkley had 91 catches that year. I mean, it's probably because he can't trust his offensive line, but I think part of Eli Manning at that point was kind of broken as well. So I guess both parties deserve blame for that.
Yeah, he was broken because he had Eric Flowers blocking for him on the left side. But Zai, man, thank you very much. I appreciate it. What's up, Chris? We've been on a downward trajectory over the last decade. Seriously, what the blank should we do next? Like, what are the next 2 or 3 most rational steps to turn this around? And you know what? There's no perfect answer here. Oh, here's the first step, Mike, and this is my opinion. We've got to still evaluate this roster for 13 games. We should not be thinking draft yet. We should not be thinking tanking. There are still young players on this team that could progress. There's still a lot of players on this team with unfamiliarities with the schemes, and we have to see how they play over the last 13 games. That's not just Daniel Jones. That's players on the defense. That's players on the offensive line. There is still a lot of evaluation that the coaching staff, Joe Judge, and as of now, Dave Gettleman have to make before they start to think about 2021. So to me, that's the first step. And then we get into free agency, we get into the draft. We have to see if these young players progress and know if they're a part of the future of this football team. Yeah,
I agree with you. I'm not all in on the Trevor Lawrence stuff yet. Maybe I will later in the season, but not right now. But you said don't look at the draft. I'm looking at the draft right now, but in a different way. I think in the next few weeks here, they have to unload some of these older pieces for draft picks and try to get draft capital. I mentioned that. I kind of did a video about it yesterday, honestly, on my channel about what I think the Giants should do here, but I'll just kind of rehash it. But I think they should look to trade a guy like Golden Tate. If you can get a 6th-round pick for him, awesome. Look to trade Marcus Golden, the guy coming off a 10-sack year. I said a team like the Seahawks would be a perfect fit. They have no pass rushers whatsoever. We barely played Golden anyway, so you might as well trade him. And in my opinion, I'm fine with getting rid of Sterling Shepard or Evan Engram. Evan Engram just doesn't seem like to be like it's never going to work here for some reason, whether it's his fault or the scheme's fault. It doesn't seem like it's ever going to work. And Sterling Shepard, as we talked about his contract a few episodes ago, his contract runs for like 3 more years, and it's for $10 million. It's hard to get out of, So if they can trade Sterling Shepard for anything and get his contract off the books, I'm fine with it. I think Shepard's a good player. He's not great, so the Giants will never regret trading him, but his contract, I think, is a little too fat for the way he's producing at this point.
That's a great point, and I completely agree with you. I was thinking like from the draft as the standpoint of who we're going to draft in the first or second round. But yes, from that standpoint, that's a great point. The New York Giants, but then you have to ask yourself, like we talked about last week, are you going to be able to fully evaluate Daniel Jones if you trade away Sterling Shepard, if you trade away Evan? So that's another thing you have to think about. But I agree that you need to start to think about trading some of these players to get draft capital to set yourself up for the future, because that's what it's all about, bringing in younger players and continuing to build the youth movement. That's what the New York Giants are looking towards right now. And then you start to think about free agency and everything else. In terms of the most tradable players, outside of some of the guys you mentioned, I think Dalvin Tomlinson definitely should be up there. I don't know how many teams are going to be giving up much to get him. But and he's a good player. I'm not trying to knock him, but not a lot of teams are looking for a nose tackle. Maybe you get a 5th round pick for him. He's a guy that
they won't value him. Like we got a 5th for Snacks. I know it's a different contract, but teams won't value a run stuffing defensive tackle. I mean, at least the smart GMs won't, because those players are easier to find as compared to, franchise.
Yeah, you're not getting a 3rd round pick for him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I don't think it's worth it based on the value you get, but of course it depends on what one GM is willing to offer.
All right, I got a question for you here. Dave Gettleman obviously brought in Leonard Williams, right? Mm-hmm. And he probably won't trade him away. But to me, Leonard Williams is probably not going to be a part of the future of this football team, even though he's playing well, because whoever comes in here, if we replace Gettleman, and this, we're assuming, we don't know yet, but is probably not going to keep him. So do you look to possibly trade Leo at the deadline? He's played well. You could probably get a decent value for him.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this exact thing, and it made sense. I didn't include it in my video, but it would make sense. Now, I don't see it happening if Gettleman's here. If Merritt tells him to trade him, then sure, maybe it'll happen. But I think as long as Gettleman's here, he's going to ride out this Leonard Williams thing as long as he can. And he's had a good year so far. He's definitely not the problem. Yeah, but it really depends what type of pick you can get for him. If they get a 3rd in return, that's awesome because you basically erase what you did last year. But with the Williams thing, I think they get their 4th if he doesn't re-sign. If they do re-sign him, that goes to a 5th. So the Jets get one of her 4th or 5th round picks. So I guess not having him will be better to secure the 4th round pick rather than keeping the 5th round pick. And if you can also get a 3rd round pick for Leonard Williams, I'm fine with it. The Giants have enough defensive line depth, believe me. So, I'm fine with it. He's a good player, but it really depends what the offer is.
Yeah, I have no problem keeping him either. I think he's a good player. I'm just looking at logically, and I'm saying to myself, well, Gettleman brought this guy in. And if Gettleman's not going to be here, rational thinking, if we bring in an outsider, and we'll get into some of the outsiders you brought up in your video, they're probably not going to want to spend $15-16 million to retain a player that they never traded for in the first place. So
exactly. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's just my thoughts. Cruz, I'm on. Thank you so much for love. I appreciate it. Yes, build in the trenches. No cover linebacker or running back. So Cruz says we have to continue to build in the trench, and I agree with him. We need the offensive line. To me, we have to continue to focus on that. And obviously, some of the players that we drafted, we have to hope morph into what we think they can. Guys like Matt Parrott, guys like Shane Lemieux.
Mm-hmm. That's very important. It really depends on the development of those guys. If they can find 3 starting offensive linemen from last year's draft, that'd be awesome. Talking about Thomas, Parrott, and Lemieux. We're not sure how they'll be yet. I'll admit, I was a big Thomas guy, but he's been off to a rough start so far. I mean, he hasn't given up many sacks, but he's given up a lot of pressures. He might lead the league in pressures given up, honestly, but I think he'll get better. We kind of expect it to be tough at first. He's had a lot of tough matchups, not to give him excuses, but a lot of tough matchups to start off his career. No preseason, anything like that, kind of just thrown into it at left tackle. Of course, Nate Solder's gone, so he's kind of thrown in there. But give him time. He'll be all right. Matt Parrott, I think, played 2 snaps last week once Thomas came out. Looked pretty good in those 2 snaps, so that's something to look good, But yeah, Cam Fleming's not the future. I think once this team is completely out of playoff contention, I think sooner than later we'll see Matt Parrott in there at right tackle.
And I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just thinking realistically. The other thing I want to bring up about Andrew Thomas, you look at Nate Solder. In my opinion, why was Nate Solder so successful? 1, they had a great offensive line coach in New England, maybe the best in the sport. 2, he had Tom Brady as his quarterback. Tom Brady is as good as any quarterback in the league at reading defenses, right? You've got a quarterback now, Daniel Jones, who only has 12 starts under his belt going into the year, I think it was, right? And he's learning a completely new scheme. So that's not really helping out Andrew Thomas either. I feel like you have to factor that in as well.
Definitely. And then Brady got the ball out as fast as anybody, so it kind of made his offensive line look better. It kind of made Cam Fleming look better when he was on the Patriots too, like now that I'm realizing it, but definitely has to be part of the case.
Yeah. Max, man, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it, man. 21 line. He wants left to right, Thomas, Hernandez, Lemieux, Gates, and Parrott. That's what he wants in 2020 when he wants Thomas on the left, Hernandez, Lemieux at the I'm assuming you want Lemieux on the other guard, Gates still at the center, and Parrott at the right. That could be what you're looking at. Let's talk a little bit about that. I think you brought that up in your video, if I'm not mistaken. I've talked about that in the past as well. If they cut Zeitler, they save I think it's $10 or $12 million.
12, yeah.
$12 million. So if they cut Zeitler, yeah, then you have Lemieux. But the question is, do you feel Lemieux's the guy? You don't want to have a bunch of rookies. What do you think about that? Do you look to cut Zeitler at the end of the year if you have some faith in Lemieux going forward?
Oh, yeah. If I was the GM, yeah, I would definitely try and save that $12 million, spend it elsewhere on a more important position that you need. So, I mean, Zeitler's a fine player, of course. He'll be on the wrong side of 30 at the end of the year, I think. Might be 31 now. I'm not even sure. But I would try and save that $12 million. It's a lot. But, if you trust Lemieux and think he can actually be a starter in this league, then I say you go for it. You want to start young here. Zeitler, as we said about Leonard Williams, I know he's younger, Leonard Williams, but not part of the future, Kevin Zeitler. So we kind of want to get this youth movement going here, work on the rebuild, get Shane Lemieux these live reps, and I think it will help the team in the end.
I'm with you. I want to see Lemieux get in there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Nick Central, man, thank you so much for love. I appreciate it. Why every year we add one decent guy to the O-line and then say we address the line? We need to do whatever it takes to get the great O-line, no holes. Nick Central, man, I've been, and maybe some people don't like hearing it. Some people don't believe in having to address the offensive line as strongly as I believe in doing it. And everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I've been, long before I was on YouTube, I've been crying about this offensive line. It's been a decade. Even when we won our Super Bowl in 2012, the offensive line wasn't good. And to me, it's been about continuity. I think that's been the biggest. And like you said, we haven't brought in the best of players. We've missed on draft picks. But it's been also about continuity, and they have to continue to address it until such time they get it fixed. You look at some of the best teams in the leagues. The New Orleans Saints last year had maybe the best offensive line in football. They still spent a first-round pick on the offensive line. So they drafted Ruiz, a guy who I was hoping was dropping to the second. So I think you need to continue to focus on the offensive line.
Definitely. I mean, it really when you come down to importance of it, and I can agree with Gettleman on this one, you build from the inside out. Now, he didn't get the offensive line right so far. I have to include that, but the philosophy is right. But we saw the Giants in 2016 it was. They get Sterling Shepard as a rookie, Odell, who was great at that point, and Victor Cruz. Everyone's saying, oh, the Giants offense is going to be unbelievable. Well, when you can't block, what's going to happen? Then the next year, Brandon Marshall comes, Cruz is out. Oh, the Giants offense is going to be so great. And Evan Engram's thrown into the mix. They can't block for him. So once again, it comes down to the offensive line. Give me the better GM, or not GM, give me the better offensive line over the wide receiver weapons or even tight end weapons any day. I think it really starts from the inside out, and I think the Giants have to do a much better job of that. And honestly, I was thinking about it today. If Daniel Jones finishes the season well and does a good job here, would it be a dumb idea to spend a third or second overall pick on that Oregon left tackle? Like, would it be that stupid? I'm thinking about it.
You talking about Sewell?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, man. It comes down to Parrott. I mean, at the end of the day, what you feel about Parrott. If Parrott comes in and you think he's not the guy, and you're not 100% sold, I know Giants fans will be pissed off. But if this guy's supposed to be much better than Andrew Thomas. The guy got Heisman votes. If you could have two guys that'll be the pillars of that offensive line for the next 10 years, that's very valuable. You look at the best teams in the league, they can block.
He played next to Lemieux, so there is some continuity there when they played in college. That also can help. But, I do want, Thomas, I think, is the guy at left tackle. But I was just having those thoughts today. Like, what if he was there? What if he was available? I know they had Parrott, but, I don't know what they would do, honestly. It's kind of interesting. I know it's all speculation. We don't know what pick the Giants have. But I haven't watched this Sewell guy, but I've heard a lot of good things about him. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. We won't know for at least – week 10, week 11, around what draft pick we'll be looking at. But he's definitely going to be a guy that's talked about for sure. Jamar Chase will be another guy. Wide receiver is definitely a need of ours. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Obviously, defense as well. I mean, I think we still need at least two playmakers on that defense. We need a playmaker at the wide receiver position, and we need at least one, if not two, offensive linemen still to fill everything else out. PTA Sports, man, thank you so much for love. I appreciate it. If you haven't done so, check him out as well. He's got a great channel. He says, chin up, Giants fans. We can't suck forever. We can't suck forever, but you can suck for a long time. So hopefully this gets much better, much quicker than it's been over the last couple of years.
Yeah, at least we're not that old, Chris. I think one day in our lifetime we'll see the Giants be good. I don't know when, but we'll see it at some point.
At least we got this. That's what I always say. You're a Yankee fan, so I don't feel bad for you at all. But I'm a Met fan and I'm a Knick fan. Okay, my teams have never given me anything. They've made the Mets made 2 World Series since I've been watching the team, And the Knicks they made 2 finals when I was like 9 years old. Oh, well, 2000 I was 15, or 99 rather. But yeah, at least we got 2 Super Bowls. Now for the younger generation, I understand they've seen nothing. And this is I talk to older Giant fans. They say this is just as bad as the 70s when the team was really bad. You can't get much worse than it's been over the last 8 years outside of that one run where we won 11-5.
Yeah, if it was worse in the 70s, I don't know how bad it could have been, but it had to be really freaking bad for that to happen. I mean, I was pretty spoiled, honestly, because I started watching the Giants, as I told you, like consistently in 05. And to have 2 Super Bowls in my first like 7 years of being a fan, it just felt like the norm. But now I'm like, you can't take them for granted, because the next Super Bowl the Giants win, I'll be so grateful for it. But like, we're just in a bad spot right now as an organization. We know that.
Yeah, I just lost your super chat there, Pandemonium, but I remember what you said. He says, Chris, we need to relax. It's still only 3 games into the season. Things will get better. Let's talk a little bit about that. I just want to make sure I don't miss any others if there's any more. I think I still got a little more time on Roldies. Let's talk a little bit more about that, about having to relax, easing up a little bit, being that it's panic mode. And listen, I'm just as guilty as anybody else. I was depressed after that game and the performance that the New York Giants had last week. It was bad, okay? And I try to be as positive as I can on my channel. There was nothing to be positive about. But and I'm not making excuses. I'm just being realistic. This was a team that was learning completely new schemes. They didn't have a normal offseason. I think we still need to be fair and give this team the next 13 games to truly evaluate the younger players on this roster.
Yeah, you're right. We talked about it right before we started this. They're going to get better. I've said this as well. There's no way the Giants get worse from here on out. I have not been too enthusiastic about Jason Garrett so far, but his offense has to get better. I feel like the defense will get more acclimated as well. And there are things to be positive about. The Giants have some players on this roster that are good for the future. I think Thomas is a guy. Nick Gates looks to be pretty good. Lemieux, of course. I mean, the offensive line of pans out as well. Definitely seems set. You have some good defensive linemen, Dexter Lawrence. Blake Martinez is a real player. Who else do we have? James Bradbury's looked great so far. And so there are some players on this team to look forward to. But like the problem with the Giants is, I think, in my opinion, they don't have enough star power. They don't have enough star players. There's no real game changers. They don't have a pass rusher that can change a game. They don't have like a wide receiver that can change a game right now. So that's kind of an issue for them. But there are things to be optimistic about, I think.
Yeah, I think there's definitely pieces to this team where I look at it and I'm like, okay, they could be nice pieces. But like you said, I look at this roster right now, I don't see a lot of franchise players, at least not yet. Yeah. Maybe Lorenzo Carter takes that huge step. I haven't seen it yet. I think Dexter Lawrence is a franchise player. I think Barkley, when he's healthy, is a franchise player. I think Bradbury is a franchise player, and maybe not an elite corner, but I think he's definitely a very solid starting corner in the NFL. And we may have 1 or 2 others that could develop. But like you said, we're missing on that huge game changer on both sides of the ball. We don't have a game. Barkley is when he's healthy, but we don't have a game-changing receiver. Yeah. We don't have a game-changing edge rusher. We just don't have it. We don't have those players.
That's the problem, though. Like what we were talking about with the positional value, the Giants' best players and franchise players are run-stuffing defensive tackle and Lawrence, who could get to the passer sometimes, but he's known for stopping the run, and a running back. So that's kind of a problem for me, a person that takes the positional value stuff seriously. To have those be your 2 best players, it kind of, it's not going to be good.
It's kind of like the problem the Mets had. Their best hitter was always a catcher.
Yeah.
Catchers wear down when they're 30 years old. Yeah. So, and let's see what we got here, man. Roldy, man, thank you so much for love. I appreciate it. Tomlinson, Ingram, Shepard, Williams, and I'm willing to take a 6th or a 7th for Tate. Talking about players that he potentially trade.
Yeah.
And next, if Barkley's healthy, I would look to trade him too. Let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, I think we talked about all those players. We said we would trade Tomlinson, Ingram, Shepard, and Leonard Williams. We'd be open to it if the deal was right. Tate, maybe you get something for him. The guy still is owed 2 years on that contract, but they could cut him, but they'd have to take a cap hit. I don't see much value in Tate at all. I honestly don't think anybody's trading for Shepard either, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Based on the injury history. But in terms of Barkley, let's talk a little bit about that. Obviously, that's a hot topic of conversation. Went down with the injury. A lot of Giants fans, even before the injury, not a lot, but there was it kind of like the tank for Trevor crowd. I feel like that's probably 15 to 20% of the fan base, probably 15 to 20% of the fan base before Saquon Barkley got hurt. We're talking about that they need to trade this guy. I want to get your thoughts on the whole potential to trade Saquon Barkley, and then I'll give mine.
In my opinion, you can't do it. Once the pick was made, you kind of just dug your own grave at that point, in my opinion. There's no way a team is trading a first-round pick for a running back. I'm trying to think the last time it happened. I mean, we saw the Jaguars flat out release Leonard Fournette, who had like 1,200 yards last year. So I feel like the last time it happened was Trent Richardson to the Colts when they traded like a first-round pick for him, and we saw how bad that turned out. I feel like GMs nowadays don't trade first-round picks for Barkley, and you're not going to trade Barkley for 50 cents on the dollar. I mean, if GMs don't value that position, you just can't trade the guy. You kind of just have to just take it and hope he comes back next year healthy. I don't think the Giants would ever get a fair and valuable return for a guy like him. So right now he just has to be a Giant. I don't think there's any point in trading him right now.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll say is, first off, nobody's trading for him this year. The guy's coming off an ACL injury. And then the other thing you got to factor in, if he comes back and shows that he's the Saquon of old, any team that's looking to trade for him realizes they're not dumb. If we trade for this guy, we're going to have to give him $20 million a year because at that point, the market will have accelerated. He's one of the best playmakers in the league when he's healthy. You have to factor that in. Like you said, you're going to be getting pennies on the dollar. You just are. Yeah. So in my opinion, when we selected him, he's our guy. You have to hope that that he stays healthy and he plays well through that second contract. I don't think you're going to get near what you'd hope for if you were to trade Saquon Barkley, even if he comes back healthy. Maybe I'm wrong, but I agree. I agree with you on that.
That's my problem with the people, when I complain on Twitter, like I always do, when they say, oh, it's 2018, forget about it. Like I can't just forget about it because when the Giants took Barkley, this is a multi-year investment. We're talking here in 2020 about it, and they're not going to be able to trade him. They're not going to be able to, I don't know what they're going to do in contract negotiations because the guy's going to want $18 million a year or something like that. So they've put themselves in this hole now. So it's not just a 2018 thing. I'm not going to forget about it. So kind of annoys me when people want to say that. So I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Cruzon, man, thank you very much. Oh, God, yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. There's another one I get all the time. I don't know about you. Cruzon says no on Louis Riddick. He wanted Haskins and Simmons. What's your thoughts on the TV GM, as I call him, from ESPN?
I kind of like Daniel Jeremiah. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like him. Riddick, I don't, because Riddick wanted Barkley. Riddick wanted Haskins. Riddick wanted
Simmons.
Simmons, yeah.
Riddick said he'd fall out of his chair if the Giants didn't draft Simmons.
Imagine how bad this team would be if they made those picks. I mean, Haskins is worse than Jones. I think we can admit that. I just don't think we'd be in a good spot right now with Riddick. I know he's had some nice accomplishments before, but I mean, based on what he said on TV for what he would do for the Giants, it would not have been a good team, I don't think.
Yeah, I if I'm bringing in a guy, I'm bringing in a guy from that's has more credentials, like you said in your video, and I definitely want to get to some of those guys for sure. In a couple of minutes, I just got to catch up with a couple of these. Pastor Ray Pittman, thank you very much, man. He says, I like DJ, but like I told Bad Dog, today's NFL, the quarterbacks have a shorter leash than in the 80s and the 90s. DJ has 13 games left to prove himself, or he's gone. All right, I'll start with that. I mean, I kind of agree with you, actually. I think he has 13 games left, but I think we have to give him those 13 games. And if the Giants have the first pick and he plays poorly, he probably is gone. And I may not want that. I may not think that's the right decision, but that's just facts. That's just being realistic. They're going to bring in a new GM. You're going to have a huge quarterback prospect staring you in the face at number one. I feel for Daniel Jones because, like I said at the top of the stream, they set him up for failure. We were never set up to be able to support a quarterback. And we're not going to be set up to support Trevor Lawrence either. The thought process is he's that good that he could just carry the team. That's what people think. And maybe he is, but maybe he isn't.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's the thing. If anyone tells you they know what's going to happen with Daniel Jones or they know what's going to happen with Trevor Lawrence or the Giants, don't listen to him because we don't know. We still have to watch what happens these remaining games. I mean, we can't tell here in September. It still is what's going to happen with Daniel Jones. But I agree. This is kind of a 13-game audition. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Gettleman gets fired, new GM comes in, the Giants have a top 2, top 3 pick, and then one of these guys, a Fields or Lawrence, is sitting there, and if the new GM loves them and they don't really see anything in Jones, it's 100% possible. But it's also possible that Jones plays well enough the rest of the year to earn himself another year. The Giants go a different route in the draft, maybe get him a Jamar Chase, a wide receiving weapon or something like that. So I think everything's on the table right now, but nothing is really settled. It really depends what happens with Jones, the way he finishes out the year. I'm sure we'll have a more of a clear answer in November and December at the end of the year, but right now we really can't tell.
There's no way of telling. And let me ask you this. Let me give you a hypothetical. I'm curious because let's say Jones plays pretty well, right? The last 8 games. Things start to click, but we still finish with 3 wins. Like, let's say he goes 4 games straight without turning it over. He looks pretty good. He looks comfortable in the offense. But because of the teams we play, and if you look at the schedule, you got the Cowboys, you got the Seahawks, you got the Ravens, you got Arizona. You play really tough games those last 5 or 6 games. But let's say he looks good doing it, but we still only win 3 games and we get the first or second pick. Just your opinion on one on this. What would you rather in that spot? And I'm not even talking about the GM. Would you rather give Jones another year and continue to try to support this team, trade down and get a ton of assets for somebody trying to move up and get an elite quarterback, or would you rather take the quarterback there?
Man, it really depends because I don't do the draft research till January, so I'm not going to know like how great Lawrence is, how great Fields is. If I had the same type of feeling that I did if I did like a Kyler Murray, I'd probably take that type of guy. But you have to be basically 100% sold that this quarterback is, as you said, transcendent, amazing. Like if it's anything not that, if the guy gets an A grade instead of an A plus, I think you stick with Jones and you try to trade down and get more assets. I think the Giants can probably trade down from a second or third overall pick, maybe do what the Colts did, get 4 top 50 picks and get so many starters and fill that in. I just don't think it's right to give up on Jones if he has this type of great finish that you mentioned, goes 4 or 5 straight games without turning the ball over and looks great. It wouldn't be time to give up on him. But if there's a guy they feel very strongly about, as I said, the way I did with Kyler Murray, I think you kind of take that guy and just start over again.
I think that's fair. Listen, if you feel a guy is a Pat Mahomes level talent, or could be, it's hard to pass up on him. I definitely understand that. I'm not going to root for us to tank and get to that spot, but if we're there, it's hard to pass up on him. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Pandemonium Man, thank you very much. Hard work beats talent. The Giants will be fine when they learn the playbook. Listen, I think the Giants are going to be much better when they learn the playbook. I don't know if that's going to result in wins because, like I said, we play a much tougher schedule. But I still honestly believe, and I think Mike believes this too, over the last half of the season, you're going to see a much better football team than you did over the first half.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. But as you said, it might not result in wins, but we're going to see a better product on the field. I definitely have to agree with that.
Yeah, because it's not even just the playbook. It's also Judge learning to be a head coach. He should get better over the course of time too. There's a guy that's never coached a team. You should see him get better over the course of time. And that's the other thing I'm starting to hear, by the way, in my chats and my comments. Get rid of Judge. I flip out, in my head, not at them. I try to be as polite as I can on YouTube because everybody can have their own opinion. But I can't believe that people are already starting to talk about moving on from Judge.
How's it his fault?
To me. It's unbelievable to me.
Someone's got to tell me how it's Judge's fault for the Giants being 0-3. I don't get it.
It's unbelievable to me.
It's the same thing with Pat Shurmur. And not to say Shurmur's a good coach because I don't want people to, misunderstand me there. But I always said Pat Shurmur was set up to fail. The guy was never given a roster to win. He was given a declining Eli Manning with no offensive line. What the hell can you do on offense at that point? He was given a roster where it's basically impossible to win. I felt bad for Shurmur. He's not head coach material, as we know, but I always felt he was put in a position to fail. And now, due to this roster not being good yet, we might see the same thing with Joe Judge. Now, he does not deserve to be fired or even be on the hot seat at this point. But, if a new GM comes in, I've heard this one as well, maybe there's a chance Judge is a one and done. I don't see that happening. That's, pretty crazy at this point, but I have no idea how you can blame Judge through what happened so far. It's really not his fault. It's a talent issue, honestly, and even a coaching issue with the offense and defense.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I worry, this year he's in the clear. I don't care if they go 1-16. He better keep his job. The following year, if you're bringing a new GM with no attachments to Judge, and we don't know what they're going to do, then I think that you have to worry about the following year that they could make a coaching change if the team really struggles again, because that guy has no attachments to Judge. He doesn't want him to drag him down.
I'm thinking right now, it's actually funny.
I don't want that. Believe me, I don't want that.
No, I know. What if the Giants had Dan Quinn as their coach? You know what's happening with Atlanta, right? How they blow all these games. Can you imagine how, oh my gosh, they'd be having like planes fly over with like fire him and oh my God, I'm just thinking
how did Dan Quinn keep his job going into this year?
Because this is what happened. The Falcons came out of the bye. They looked tremendous the first 2 weeks out of the bye. Looked a lot better on defense. And then I guess for some reason, based on those 2 weeks, Arthur Blank, whoever the owner is, thought, all right, that's enough to keep him. I don't know how personally. He's blown so many games as a head coach, not even the Super Bowl, more than that. It doesn't make sense at this point.
It's kind of, and no disrespect to Marvin Lewis, because I thought he was a very good head coach, but it was kind of like Marvin Lewis. Every year you'd be like, that guy still has a job? Yeah. He's never won a playoff game. He's had a job for 15 years or whatever it's been. It's kind of like that.
I feel like it was more, honestly, but yeah.
Yeah. Rolby says exactly, Mike. I get the same damn remarks to forget about 2018, but they don't understand how big that was. I didn't want Riddick at all. No, listen, Rolby, I'll be the first to tell you, 2018 is something. If Barkley's a failure, and it's not even his fault, yes, that was an opportunity for the Giants to trade back at a ton of draft capital and fill in a lot of holes on this roster, and we might have been in a much better place. I'm always going to be honest. I agree with that. I think it's fair. I just try to get behind the players that the Giants select, and I loved Barkley. And I think he's a great football player. It's been unfortunate so far throughout his career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the problem. I can never disagree with their assessment on Barkley. I thought just overall as a football player, he's probably the best player in the draft, but that was the prime position for the Giants to finally start over again. Going in with Eli Manning, it was bad. We know that, but that was the prime position to just trade back in the draft, get yourself more picks, get more starters at other places, even go franchise quarterback at that point would have made more sense. I know the guys that picked around Barkley were not that good. I mean, Darnold, Josh Allen's been pretty good. He's turning into an elite quarterback, but even Rosen has been terrible.
He's been ridiculous, Josh Allen.
I don't want to talk about that, but there hasn't been many. Even that's the problem though. If Sam Darnold turned out to be a franchise quarterback, that would have been bad. Like even playing in the same stadium, that would have been a bad look for the Giants. So Mayer's lucky, Gettleman's lucky that Darnold's really struggling right now, because if he turned out to be a great quarterback, that'd be a bad situation for the Giants.
See, Sam Darnold is what I worry about with the Giants, because I don't know your thoughts on Sam Darnold. I don't think you were huge on him. You were bigger on Rosen.
Yeah.
But I personally think Darnold's a pretty good quarterback. I'm not saying he's great, but I think he's a good quarterback. But I think he's in such a bad situation. Like, we think the Giants are bad. The Jets are even worse. Like, the Jets situation is bad. And I look at it like this. If we don't improve this situation, are you then going to, and if Lawrence is Mahomes, he's going to overcome it. But if he's not, it could be Sam Darnold all over again with the New York Giants. And then you wasted 2 early first-round picks on quarterbacks, and you could have used that to bolster the rest of your roster.
Mm-hmm. That's 100% true. I mean, the Darnold's in a terrible situation. I mean, the way I looked at it in the draft is I had Baker Mayfield on top, Rosen, and then I put Allen and Darnold next to each other. I didn't take Lamar Jackson seriously as being a Giants pick, so I was like, I'm not going to worry about that. But he's been put in an impossible situation. I think if you put Josh Allen on the Jets and put Darnold on the Bills, it might be a completely different situation. I think Darnold's talented. I tweeted this out. Darnold makes 1 or 2 plays a game that really wows you, but he'll also do something really stupid, whether it's because of his offensive line, receivers not knowing where to go. I mean, we saw the pick sixes he had in Indianapolis last week. It was terrible. But I think talent-wise, Sam Darnold's still very good. He's turnover-prone, a little inconsistent, but, I mean, the Jets are really bringing him down. His
number 1 wide receiver wouldn't even start on our football team. And we complain about our receiving core. I mean, really. Danny, man, thank you so much for love. I appreciate it. He says, I like Adam Peters from San Francisco. Can't tell with Daniel Jones just yet.
I love that he said that. I'm a big Peters guy. I don't know if you watched my video, but
I watched part of it. I didn't get to see all of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's your guy? You want Peters?
Yeah, I watched a couple of interviews. I watched a few San Francisco 49ers fans on a podcast talk about him, talking about how he's like one of the masterminds behind this roster that San Francisco has, which is great. I mentioned if they can beat us with their practice squad, it must be a pretty damn good roster. But Peters is a young guy, very intelligent, looked very good in the interviews I watched with him. So, I mean, I'm kind of all for him right now. I don't know if it's just like, based on the videos I watched or whatever it is, but I was a big fan of him.
What do you think? I don't know why the names escape me. What do you think about the young guy from the Patriots, who the Giants he came out in 2017 and said he would have been open to taking this job. I don't know why the names escape me, but what do you think about him?
Is it Caserio or no?
Yeah, Caserio, yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah. I didn't know he said that in 2017?
Yeah, there was an article one of the people in my Discord showed me that he came out and said that he would have been open to taking the New York Giants job.
I wish he didn't tell me that. I mean, honestly, his drafts the Patriots drafts haven't been that good in recent years, and people will point that out to me. I get in that argument all the time on Twitter. People are like, well, Bill Belichick misses on picks, so don't rat on Gettleman. I'm like, come on, it's not even comparable. But Caserio is a very interesting guy as well. As I said, the drafts haven't been that good recently, but he has so many accolades. He's a smart guy, well respected, coming from a great organization. It's a pretty good pickup. I just don't think he would leave. I mean, based on what you just told me, maybe, but I feel like right now he's in such a good spot in New England. They have a great team there still, so I don't know why he would leave. But if he wants to come here, I'll welcome him with open arms.
You're all aboard, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and it sounded like in your video you are not for staying in-house. You're not for making Abrams the GM. You don't like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not fair, and someone mentioned this as well on Twitter, that it's not fair for me to judge Abrams because we've never seen him as a GM. But like, how many more times do we have to go, do the giant way, as they call it, and promote someone from in-house? It has not worked. I want someone from another organization. The Giants have just been the worst team in football recently. Like, I want someone from like the Niners, the Chiefs. It doesn't matter what team you come from, but you know what I mean? Just a better environment, learn under better GMs, and just comes here and does their own thing and kind of just changes that identity of this team. If you promote Kevin Abrams, I feel like you're going to do 4 more years of what Dave Gettleman did. It just makes no sense. Not to say he's as bad as Gettleman. I know Abrams is good with the cap situation, but I don't know what he's like evaluating players, and it's still a guy from the Giants organization. So how much will things change if he's promoted? I don't think that much.
Yeah, and to me, it's going to come down to I don't know what they're going to do if they move on from Gettleman. But to me, it's going to come down to whether or not they want Jones to be the guy. If Maris says to himself, Jones is going to be the guy no matter what, he's going to make Abrams the GM.
Which is scary.
if Maris says to himself, hands are off, I'm going to bring in a guy that has an outside thinking mind, and I'm going to let him do his thing, then Abrams will not be the guy. They'll bring in a guy then, and they may select the quarterback. So I think that is kind of what it's going to come down to. Maris' thought process at the quarterback position.
And people keep talking about Tisch making the decision this time. It's always been Mara and whoever the head coach or GM has been. They've always been like making the decisions. But I think at this point in time, it might be Steve Tisch's time to make a decision here because I think they're both 50% owners. I feel like you should probably give that guy some say. And for how things have went here recently, I think he deserves a large say in what happens next.
It's a fair take. Ignacio, man, thank you very much. He says, did you guys hear about cornerback Madre Harper? I did. I did not make a video on it yet, but he says from the Raiders to the Giants, a nice signing. From what I heard, what I saw, he was on the practice squad. He had a killer 40 time. I think he ran a 4.41. And I remember reading some things on his combine. His combine was very good. The Raiders actually really liked him, but they had a crowded backfield, so they had to put him on the practice squad. That's basically what I've read up on him so far. I think he's pretty tall. I didn't get to read much more about him or see his highlights yet.
Yeah, I didn't either, honestly. But that is a good point. The Raiders do have a pretty crowded secondary. They have Arnett. They have another guy in his second year that I cannot remember right now, but he was good last year. So I know they have a few good young cornerbacks there. So maybe this is like a Caden Smith situation where they had too many tight ends. They had to let him go. Maybe this is a diamond in the rough type of thing. I have not watched him yet. I probably will later, but definitely an interesting point.
Yeah, and like you bring up a great point with Caden Smith. There's a guy that he was in a spot there with the Niners last year, and we benefited because they were so strong at that tight end spot. We actually got the Niners' second and third tight ends from last year. They're now our second and third tight ends on our roster. But that's that is a good point. Steven, man, thank you very much for love. I appreciate it. He says, I say give Daniel Jones this season and next build the team trading down. And if at the end of 21-22 season he is still bad, then move on and look at next year's schedule. Stephen, let me first off, I want to say thank you for being a great subscriber all the way from England. Thank you for tuning in the stream, man. He's freaking awesome. You bring up a really good point, and that's my mindset on it. And listen, if Lawrence is the guy, I'm going to get behind him. I'm going to get behind whatever the New York Giants do. I'm going to hope that they make the right decision. But I look at it like this. If you give Jones that extra year, and he fails, but you are in the process, by trading down, you're able to accumulate all these other pieces to help fill in the other holes on your roster. You get your center, you get your wide receiver, you get your edge rusher, your cornerback, whatever. You fill in those necessary holes to make this a better football team. You give Daniel Jones that extra year, and if Daniel Jones fails, then the quarterback that you bring in has a much better situation, and you don't do to the new quarterback what you did to Daniel Jones. You set him up for a better situation to succeed. So I do think that is the best case scenario, Lily.
I agree 100%. Now, was he saying that, was he talking about drafting another quarterback or keeping Jones? What was the question?
He was saying keeping Jones for at least one more year and trading back and getting assets.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. Yeah, if you can trade back and get multiple good players that turn into starters, as you said, fill in the a pass rushing position and maybe a wide receiver, other positions that the Giants need, it would make a lot of sense. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, but like I said, if they feel that I can't get on them if they feel that Trevor Lawrence is Pat Mahomes, if they have the first pick. But I do think that I would be very happy if they went that approach, if Daniel Jones proves that he's worthy of a third-year evaluation, and hopefully he does that. Roldy, man, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. He says, what makes you think this team will play better once they learn the playbook? It's a lack of talent, not the playbook. The team has no talent. I have no issues with Judge. Give me your thoughts on that.
It's kind of both right now. It's a lack of knowing the playbook as well as they should, and also a lack of talent. I always think the lack of talent it's the main thing. That's why I always say, give me talent over culture, because winning brings good culture. I always argue that with the Gettleman people. But when it comes to talent on this team, it's really not that good. I'm forgetting the question already. Sorry. What was the? Oh no,
I'll read it again. He says, what makes you think this team will play better once they learn the playbook? It's a lack of talent, not the playbook.
Okay, so yeah, back even 2018 when the Giants had Shermer, Eli Manning, even a veteran quarterback, admitted it took to like week 7, week 8, or whatever it was that he finally felt comfortable here. And this is Daniel Jones not playing in preseason, not having any like live reps before the year, a second-year quarterback, not even playing 16 games. So if it took a guy like Eli Manning 7, 8 weeks to learn Pat Shermer's system, think of how much longer it might take Daniel Jones. He might not learn until the end of the season, maybe the final month of the year, which would suck for him. But he's a smart kid; he'll get it. I just don't see a way that can be any worse. Now, Patrick Graham's system, it seems like guys have been better this year with knowing who they're covering. There hasn't been many guys running wide open this year as compared to years past, but even some points where guys look kind of confused. I mentioned in the breakdown video, Devontae Downs had a moment looking very confused, but I think it's going to get better because as the guys get more acclimated and comfortable with this offense and defense, it'll be all right. Now, the Giants won't make the playoffs because the talent's not there, but just knowing the playbook and knowing what their coordinators want to do, it'll be better in that sense.
Great answer. Mike's the man. Mike's the man.
Thank you.
Here's what I'll say, man. I definitely think that we lack some talent on this roster for sure in a lot of areas. I don't know if we lack talent at the quarterback position yet. I don't know. I can't tell you we do or we don't because I have seen flashes from Daniel Jones. And I look at quarterbacks around the league. Mike, I want you to do me a favor. Off the top of your head, outside of Jared Goff, tell me one quarterback in their second year that had to learn a new system that played really well. And maybe you'll think of somebody.
A rookie?
Second-year quarterback that had to learn a second system in his second year.
I was going to say Matt Ryan and Shanahan's, but he was in like his 10th year. Man, off the top of my head, I'm probably not going to be able to do this. I don't know if Lamar Jackson had the same system, so that's not going to count.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't really know, honestly. I mean, did Carson Wentz have the same system he did, right? Because Peterson was the coach in his rookie
most
year.
teams aren't dumb enough to make the quarterback learn a second system in his second year. Yeah. We did. But to me, we gave Daniel Jones such a tough task. And then you factor in that we didn't have preseason games. That's when I say patience, that's what I'm mainly talking about. And the offensive line. You have 3 new starters. We talk about continuity. You can't expect this to be a finished product 3 weeks into the season when they've never played with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I kind of stood up for Shermer as well. Not only did he didn't have a fair chance, but I think the quarterback situation as well. Now, in an interview we had, Gettleman said that Shermer was the most infatuated by Daniel Jones. So really, Daniel Jones was a Shermer guy. He thought he would fit his offense perfectly, and we saw moments of greatness last year with Daniel Jones. The 4 touchdown, 0 interception games he had last year. He had a few of them for a rookie, which is phenomenal. But now you switch systems. It's a lot, quick hitting offense, a lot short passes and things like that. You change the entire complexity of the offense, and now it's not looking as good so far. I think things will get better for Jones, but when you move on from a different offense, from Pat Shermer's to Jason Garrett's, you have to expect some growing pains, and that's one of the problems with letting Shermer go. I know he wasn't a good head coach, but once you change systems, it's hard for your quarterback to get back to what he was doing last year towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw another name at you. What do you think of Aaron Rodgers last year compared to this year?
I don't know what it is. I'll admit,
I do. It's the second year in Matt LaFleur's offense.
You think so?
I think that has a lot to do with it.
Mm-hmm. I think I listen to Pat McAfee sometimes and they interview Rodgers. He says he's like loving life this time around and things are different for him mentally, which could help, but it has a lot to do with that as well. Now, we saw Rodgers on Sunday Night Football, no Devontae Adams going out there slinging the rock to Alan Lazard and beating the Saints. I mean, he's looked phenomenal this year. He's amazing. I love Rodgers.
I say it all the time, and people yell at me. I get into debates all the time. I think Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. That's how talented I think that guy is. I think he's
Mahomes is getting there for me, but yeah, from what I've watched in my lifetime, Rodgers is probably the best.
Because you look at what they gave that guy. Now, that's the type of quarterback we hope Lawrence is if we do draft him, because that guy, he literally had a running back, a wide receiver playing running back for like 3 years with Ty Montgomery. He had no help. He's never thrown a touchdown to a first-round wide receiver in his entire career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first-round pick. The first one he had was Mercedes Lewis, who was a Jaguars pick in like 2006, and that happened last year. It tells you, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's why I always thought McCarthy was overrated. Rodgers has never been in that great of a situation. The Packers had some great teams in like the early 2010s, late 2008, 2009, but still, he has not been in the best situation. It's all his talent.
Yeah, and that goes to show you he's the greatest I personally have ever seen. He's only got 1 Super Bowl because of it.
Yeah,
Roldy, man, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. He says Dobbs or Daniel Jeremiah are my 2 favorites for GM. I really like Dobbs. I did a little research on Dobbs. I saw you talk about Dobbs. I'm a fan of Dobbs. If they bring in a GM, I got to do a little more research. I'm gonna wait on that video. I'm not gonna rush it out. I know you couldn't wait.
Yeah, I did some of my GM research last week. I didn't expect them to lose that badly, but after that, I was like, I have to release this video. But Dobbs is interesting. Now, people say Dobbs loves the job he's in right now as an assistant to Chris Ballard. I don't know if he'd want to leave, but when you're given full roster move control for the New York Giants, who are still a prestigious franchise, even for how bad they've been recently, I feel like that's a job that's hard to say no to. So I don't know if he wants to leave at Dodds, but I would be very interested if he wants to come here for sure.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Dobbs from the limited research I've done for sure. I saw a couple of people ask us to do a call-in. I'm not going to do that this week because we're probably going to end this in maybe 20, 30 minutes. I'm not going to do that this week. Maybe next week, if Mike's up for it, we could post a link and have maybe a guest come on via video with us, and we'll talk to them. We could, if you're up for that, we could do that.
Yeah, you might have to control it because I'm kind of a boomer with this stuff. I'm not going to know what to do, but yeah, I'm definitely down for that.
Yeah, man, definitely, man. Let's see what we got here. And Abrams is okay. Roldy, man, I want to make sure I didn't miss this. And Roldy says, and Abrams is not a talent evaluator. He's all cap the money guy. Abrams better not be. He has no clue about personnel. I agree, Mike. I'm waiting for Tish to finally have some say. Here's my thought process on this, and it's why I don't think it'll happen. If Abrams became the GM, he'd be the money guy, and I think Judge would be the GM. But if the Giants win 2 games, 3 games, how do you sell the fan base on that? As much as I like Judge and I want him to be the coach for a long time, if in his first year he wins 2 or 3 games, can you really sell the fan base on that Joe Judge is going to be the guy making the personnel decisions?
That's a tough sell. I've definitely seen a few comments in there about, should you promote Judge to be the GM? And it's a thought of mine. I think he had a lot to say in this past year's draft and even free agency. But to make him the full GM, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it. The guy's 38, 39 years old. He's probably good at evaluating talent, but that's just a lot of responsibility. Like, I want him more focused on like the games and things like that. Like, how is Joe Judge going to GM during the season and worry about, setting up a game plan and making trades and evaluating his own roster? And I feel like that's too much responsibility. So while it's a thought and it's possible, I know Belichick does it for the most part with Caserio, I just feel like it's a lot of responsibility for a 38-year-old head coach.
Exactly. That's the other thing. And we saw it happen with McDaniels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Didn't work out too well there.
Started out well, but yeah.
I did it. He drafted Tim Tebow.
Well, no, he started out 5-0 with Denver.
Oh, yeah. The record
went bad.
Well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That to me is still one of the biggest mysteries of the NFL to me, how Tim Tebow won a playoff game.
I don't know. I have a lot of friends. I have one friend that's a Steelers fan, so like I was very happy when it happened, but like I don't know either. Pretty crazy. That season for the Broncos was riding on 60-yard field goals from like Matt Prater every week. It was the most like unsustainable thing, but it found a way each week to just find a way to keep happening. So must have been a crazy year.
Yeah. Pandemonium says Rodgers went 6-9. Or maybe he's talking about his record. Could have been
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Yeah. I mean, Rodgers had a bit.
Yeah,
that's why they got rid of McCarthy. And it's a big reason why I didn't want McCarthy as the New York Giants head coach. I said to myself,
they lost to Josh Rosen at Lambeau. That's how bad they were that year. I mean, that's why he got fired, I think, right after that Cardinals loss. I mean, that proves how bad they were.
Yeah. That's why Rodgers wanted McCarthy out of there. You see that they bring in the new head coach. They go 13-3 the next year. Roldy, man, thank you so much. He says, I'd say this to Chris. No team is dumb enough to hire Shermer in the first place as the head coach when he was horrible before. I like y'all know that, but look at Herbert in his first year in the system. Look at the kid in Cincinnati. Okay, here's what I'll say about that. Listen, I think it's the same thing with Gettleman as it was with Shermer. I think the New York Giants might have had better potential options had they not told the head coach coming in, Eli Manning's probably going to be he's going to be the starting quarterback going into the year. I think that the New York Giants limited their potential coaching hires. Ed Sherman was coming off a year where he did a great job with the quarterback in Minnesota. He had they took what was his name again? Keenum. Keenum took him to the playoffs, and Sherman was widely credited with that. But my guess is he wasn't the second, third choice. He was probably the first guy that said, "Yeah, I'll take Eli Manning as my quarterback."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like they wanted McDaniels that year. I don't know why I think that, but when he realized that he had to go with Eli Manning, that probably was a turnoff for any head coaching candidate, because if anyone saw it the way I saw it at the time and some other Giants fans saw it, Eli Manning wasn't really the same guy he once was. So to just be forced into that situation, knowing that I'm going to be stuck with this quarterback, probably on a losing team, and I might get fired here in 2 years because the Giants have not been too sustainable with their head coaches, I feel like that would scare off a lot of head coaching candidates. So it has to be said.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about when you got to factor everything in. When you start getting rid of people, you have to factor in, is it going to scare away guys that are more
Yeah.
credible to take the position? Like the people want to fire Joe Judge. Okay, so you just fired 3 head coaches in 4 years. Yeah, no thanks. No
Yeah.
thanks. I'm not going there. I'm running for the hills. So
Mhm.
you got to factor that in, man. Coaches obviously are going to take that into consideration, the sustainability of the franchise. Is this team going to give me a real opportunity?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if I was a prestigious head coaching candidate myself and I was offered a job by the Giants, I would say, why wouldn't you turn your back on me like it did with the other 3 or 4 guys? You have to put that in your head.
Yeah, for sure. And Stephen Lilly says, I have a question. Are you two now boomer bros? What is the depth? Isn't a boomer like a guy that's 50?
Yeah, I think they're in their 50. I think my parents are in that range, like 50s, 60s, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got some gray hairs, but I don't qualify as a boomer yet. And you're younger than me, so
Yeah, and we're not there, no. But with
we're
technology, yeah, I
maybe
don't
in
know.
maybe in 20 years, if we're still on YouTube, we'll be
Yeah,
boomer
yeah,
bros.
we'll see.
But not right now. But I just want to say thank you again to everybody for being here. We'll go for another 15, 20 minutes. I'll try to answer some more questions in the chat, man. I absolutely love working with Mike. I think he's a great Giants content creator. I worked with him when he was over on Fireside Giants. Yeah, I was really looking for. I know last year you said you had complications with your schedule with school.
Yeah.
But I was always really looking forward to working with you. I think you're really good at what you do, and I'm glad that we're doing this.
Same
But
to you. Yeah, it's fun.
yeah, I appreciate it, man. But by the way, if one of my mods could post Mike's channel I know maybe you guys have been doing it throughout, but if you guys could post Mike's channel, we're going to be over there next week recapping what we hope. Let's talk a little bit about week 4.
Mm.
Recapping what we hope is a better performance by the New York Giants. But going in, obviously the Rams have looked really good. And I was pretty high on the Rams going into the year. They've even exceeded my expectations. Granted, they played the NFC, so how good do they look? But I like the way Goff has bounced back. I like the way that they've really focused on the run game. They're using a 3 running back approach. Obviously, Aaron Donald is going to present a huge mismatch for Nick Gates, who's been a guy that, we definitely have question marks at a bare minimum going into this game. Give me your thoughts on this game.
It's going to be tough. And the thing that makes it even worse is that the Rams are probably going to come into this game very pissed off because I don't know if you watched the game in Buffalo week 3. They came back from a 28-3 deficit, took a 32-28 lead. They came all the way back. Then they get hosed on the call at the end. Josh Allen throws a game-winning touchdown. So they are probably very annoyed right now. They're going to take out their frustration on this Giants team. I saw the spread before. The Rams are favored by 13 points. Not good. One of the worst spreads of the week. I think us and Washington are 13-point dogs right now.
Who's Washington playing?
Terrible. Forget. Maybe Baltimore. Might be Baltimore. I forget.
Okay.
Yeah, it is Baltimore. Yeah, so that's a tough one. But yeah, the Rams have looked really good this year. I wasn't that high on them. I think I said 8-8, 9-7, but they have looked really good. The first 2 weeks they were great. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Eagles, as you mentioned. Played the Bills really well, who look like a great team right now. So their offensive line's been a lot better. That was their main problem last year. Their offensive lines had a night and day difference from 2019 to 2020. So the Giants don't have a pass rush as it is, it seems like, but their offensive line being good is definitely going to be bad for us. And they have a good offense still. They can get to the quarterback. Jalen Ramsey's been out of this world this year, so it's going to be tough.
It's going to be really tough. And I don't know. Aaron Donald is obviously who scares me the most on that defense, especially with the interior offensive line that we possess. So I don't know what you're going to do. Maybe you use a lot of fullback in this game to try to protect your quarterback as much as possible. You get your extra blocker in the backfield. Caden Smith maybe using that H-back role. You're gonna have to do everything you can to try to give Daniel Jones some time to throw the football. But the Rams are a really tough matchup, and it's in LA. This was a game at the beginning of the year where I looked at him like, oh man, this is gonna be a tough game. This is gonna be a tough game. But all I can hope for as a New York Giant fan this week is we come out with effort and we don't make silly mistakes. Like I don't want to see 3rd and 22 penalties. I don't want to see Daniel Jones making a throw like he did at his own 25. Stuff like that can't happen. Come out. Play as well as you can. Give me a good effort, and have a bounce back performance. But no, I'm not going into this game expecting a win.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I don't know what I expect what the score to be. I'm thinking like maybe 31-17. Maybe they score more than that. I don't know. But it's definitely going to be ugly, I think. And if they could keep it close, that'd be great. But I know this Rams team's been good this year. We look like we're in a different league at this point. So I don't know what to expect, honestly. But I think they'll keep it close the first half, kind of like the Niners game up until the last 2 minutes of the first half. They'll keep it close in the first half, but I think by the end of it, the Rams will probably pull away. It'll probably be a 2-possession game, a 10-point, 14-point type of game. So I'm not expecting to win. If they did, that's great, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, for sure. And Roldy says, I love Mike's channel. Mike, you need to start doing some live streams on your own from time to time. Stop fronting. You can do it. If not, I'm going to continue bothering you. Roldy said.
Fair enough.
Hey, man, listen, man, your channel's great. And I know that people are going to really enjoy these live streams when we go on your channel as well. So, yeah, you deserve all the compliments you get. You work really hard on your channel. Your film breakdowns are phenomenal. Yeah, I try to give you a shout out whenever you can. I think you got a great channel over there. Glenn says Rams 39, Giants 10.
Oh, man.
Oh, Glenn, you're killing me, man.
Oof, that's rough.
Glenn, you're killing me. You're killing me. Give us a little bit of hope. Joel says Rams 41, Giants 17. You know what I want? Can we crack 20 points? I don't think we've done that yet this year.
Did we in the Steeler game or no? It might have been 20 exactly. Or was it 17-27?
I don't think we got 20 in the Steelers
I can't remember.
Game. I don't think we have cracked 20 yet.
I'm used to it. What can I say? We don't crack 20 very often.
Yeah.
Especially like under the new coordinators. Like I felt like it took us a little while to get going with Shermer's offense too. So it's kind of, we're used to it at this point.
Bavit says, I don't know why Bavit thinks I'm short, by the way. He says, Mike looks like what Christopher would if he wasn't a midget. Bavit, I'm 5'10". Mike can't attest that. I've never met him in person, but I'm not. I promise you, I'm not a midget.
I'm 5'9", so you're taller than me. So I'm the midget out of us.
Let's see. Dynamic says, Chris, is there a social economic impact on these young guys in New York City? I'm not. I shouldn't have started reading that. I don't talk politics on this channel. Yeah. If we had Dak, this team would not be winning. But if we had Mahomes, I agree with that. Jericio, I completely agree with that. And it's why, Cowboy fans don't like to hear me talk what I call realistic about Dak Prescott. I don't bash Dak Prescott. I think he's a good quarterback, but he's similar to Jones in the sense that he's not the type of quarterback that if you put in a situation where Jones is right now, that he's going to be successful. And to me, there's not, like I said, I think there's 3-4 quarterbacks in the league that would be, and it's what scares me about taking a quarterback in this year's draft if he's not going to be that caliber of quarterback.
Yeah, the situation has to do with it a lot. I would take Dak over Jones right now, just talent-wise.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But if Jones was on the Cowboys, I think things would be a little different right now for sure. If Dak was a Giant in this situation and Jones was in Dallas, I think it'd be a lot different than what we see right now. Yeah,
100%. Guy, I'll take like 2 or 3 more questions, then we're gonna call it a day. I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here. Joey Lutz in the chat, what's going on, my man? Rose Tap, what's going on? Let's see. I just want to make sure I get some questions here. But need to let DJ run way more. That's one thing we saw this week. Mm-hmm. Daniel Jones, they finally used the RPO. They had not called an RPO play since this whole year. That was the first. They called 3 of them, I think, and all 3 of them were like 15-yard runs or longer. So that worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went over that in the film breakdown. The read option play got them for sure. The defensive ends were crashing very hard, and I think the Giants might have had 2 really big runs with Jones of like 19 and 20-something yards where he pulled the ball back, ran it himself. And I said this as well, for how atrocious this run game is, and we can't run block for anything, you might as well do some read options. I know Jones is a young guy. You don't want him getting hurt. But in a way, and we've kind of acknowledged this, he's kind of playing for his future at this point. Like next year is not a given for Jones, so you kind of got to lay it all out there this year. I know you don't want him to get hurt, but if getting these first downs on read options is going to happen, you kind of have to throw your body out there a little bit.
The other thing I was thinking about, what about Slayton? Why wasn't Slayton used more in this game? This is a guy that played great the first week, and since then he's been a ghost. And the other thing that we talked about, we wanted to see the Giants take more shots down the field. They took 1 with 2 minutes to go in the game when the game was already, they were down by however many points. Why hasn't Slayton been more used these last 2 weeks?
Yeah, with Richard Sherman out, you would think they would go for him this week. And that's the thing. Like, if you take away his long catch against the Steelers, it's kind of been a quiet-ish year. I know he had that other touchdown late, but the offense he's in right now does not benefit the the type of routes Slayton's good at. He's good at running like deep post routes and just deep comebacks and things like that. This short offense does not really benefit a guy like him. And Daniel Jones likes to work the middle of the field a lot more than the outside. So that right there is a disadvantage for him. I don't think it says anything about Slayton being bad. It's just the offense he's in right now, the lack of deep shots, the routes he's running is not benefiting him. So I don't blame him personally. I think it's more the
Oh, yeah, I'm not blaming him. I'm saying that play calling more so than anything else.
Yeah.
But I still think it's the O-line. I think the O-line can't hold blocks long enough for Jones to be able to attempt long throws. And that's why I personally don't want to judge Garrett just yet, because I want to see this offense when they fully grasp it, when the offensive line gets fully comfortable, hopefully by week 6, week 7, week 8, and then maybe we start to see some more shots down the field to open up this offense and get more. The other play that I actually liked, and I don't know if you did, and I'm sure you did, because it was such a big play. But when you look at the game film, the play to Evan Ingram, I think would have worked. I thought that was a really good play call. That would have worked. He would have had a huge gain on that play.
I went over that. That was like the second play I went over. If he caught that ball, a lot of room. They had a block. They had a cornerback on the Niners was looking basically at the wide receiver. So his eyes were not in the backfield. He probably had no idea Ingram had the ball. All Ingram had to do was beat a defensive end around the corner, which he could have done easily. So that would have been like a 20-yard gain probably at minimum.
Yeah, I thought that was a good play call. We saw some out of the box thinking this week with stuff like that.
I give Garrett credit for that. Definitely. Like, that's a play that the Niners did not expect, and it would have worked if they executed it correctly, but I can't blame Garrett for, them not catching the ball, of course.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say is you're starting it's not fully developed yet, but I think this week, because the Niners were so banged up outside of them not taking more shots down the field, but you started to see them start to implement more things into this offense. And I think you'll see that more and more as the year goes along. With the RPOs, with the pitch to Ingram, obviously they didn't execute it, but you started to see them start to not be so vanilla like we saw in the first 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. They had a end around with Shepard last week too, I think, before he got hurt. So they're doing some more stuff. It's definitely like week 1, we just saw typical stuff they were probably doing in training camp, just a lot of like halfback dives and just short passing routes. But now they're opening things up more, which is good to see.
Yeah, and hopefully they continue to do it. G-Man John says, Jones is the sacrificial lamb while we try to improve. G-Man John, I hope that's not the case, but it's certainly possible. It's what I've said throughout the entire stream. We set Jones up for failure, and it's what I say about Gettleman. I think we set Gettleman up for failure, but he made things worse. So, or at least equally as bad. So, let's see what we got here. We knew that this is still a rebuilding year. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm with the bad dog philosophy. Hey, Rod, I understand why fans are frustrated. And I understand why fans are tired of hearing about it, but it's a rebuilding year. I don't know what else to say. I mean, if you went into this year expecting playoffs, and I'm not saying you did, or if you expected this team to be winning 7, 8, 9 games and beating good teams at the beginning of the year, I personally think you weren't going in with a realistic mindset. And to me, it's a rebuilding year. Now, weeks like last week are inexcusable. But you're going to have to expect to take losses with a team like this, with a young coaching staff and young players and learning new schemes and no preseason. That's just my mentality. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right. I look at what's the bad dog philosophy. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm assuming that I don't think bad dog expect more than 6 or 7 wins either. But I think bad. That's just my mindset. I believe in a week-to-week approach and hoping that this team gets better over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they lost close to the Niners, of course it would have sucked based on how many people were out. But if they lost that game like, 24-20 or something closer at 1-point game, it would not have been as bad as we're looking at it right now. But to get blown out by that team, it kind of says a lot in a bad way. So, I mean, that has to be said.
Yeah, 7-9 would be awesome, Rod. I think that was best case scenario going into the year personally. Maybe 8 if everything broke right. But right now, probably not looking at that. We got to hope the team gets better each and every week. And it's unfortunate, Mike and myself want to come on YouTube, trust me, every week, and we want to say to you guys, we might make the playoffs. This team looks great. You think that we like covering a team that sucks? It sucks having to come on here and constantly tell you guys, you got to be patient. You got to be patient. This isn't a finished product. It's rebuilding. But we also like to come at it from a rational perspective. And I'm not saying nobody. I think most people do that with the Giants on YouTube. But we're just not that good yet. It's a team that's young, and you have to hope improves over the course of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if we came on here every year and said, "Oh, the Giants are going 12-4," and then they put up the years they had recently, I don't think people would listen to us anymore because that wouldn't make any sense. See, I don't like being the pessimistic guy. But I always said, and when I started talking sports, I'm always going to say my honest opinion. I'm not always going to be right. I know that, but I'm always going to say what I think is right. And I'm not going to be right every time, but I'm not going to lie to people and be like, oh, this is a good team, we're fine. Like, you have to tell it how it is sometimes. And, I expected a 6-10 season, you the same way. We might get lucky to get to 6 at this point, at this rate. But I mean, we can't give up yet. As we said, it's week 3, week 4. I'm not out on Jones completely yet. We got to give this some more time.
Got to give him the last 8 weeks. That's when I think this offense starts to gel. But guys, man, I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming to the stream. You guys are phenomenal. You guys are incredible subscribers. Had a lot of fun. This was kind of like a therapy session for me, getting to talk to you guys, getting to talk to Mike. I know we're all down in the dumps with the way this team is playing right now, but you got to hope and think that it'll get better over the course of the year. And we'll see where this team goes going forward. We're going to be here every step of the way to cover it. And yeah, man, just thank you to everybody for being here. MYG10, Blue Collars in the house, Rod's in the house, Saucy's in the house. Thank you to everybody for being here. Carl Hargrove, thank you guys for being here. Really do appreciate it. And of course, Rolly, of course, man, thank you for your incredible generosity. MYG31, D Rose, thank you. But like I do with every stream, whenever I have a guest on, Mike, man, I want to let you close it out. And I also want to say, if somebody once again could post Mike's link in the chat, we're going to be over there next week, probably Tuesday. Is that when we're going to do this?
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever.
Yeah, it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever fits our schedules. But we'll be over on Mike's channel next week, recapping the game, talking about the future of this team, all the hot storylines. Jay, man, have a great day. Mike, close it out, my man.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you guys. It was fun, little therapy session as we called it. I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it was fun. Hopefully we win this week. I don't know. I don't expect it, but hopefully. And I just want to see the guys get better. I mean, Daniel Jones has to play better. That's what we're kind of expecting here at this point. But as long as he plays well, I think I'll be all right with it. But yeah, it was fun. We'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, guys. You have a great rest of your day. Have a good one.
All right.
And